got your attention now, don't I?
This is the Black Rifle Coffee Podcast. Prepare to get caffeinated.
All right, welcome to Free Range American. We've got Keith Parker and Mark D'Ambrosio. Did I say it right?
Oh, man.
I said it right.
Nailed it.
That's like alphabet soup trying to fucking roll through that last name. So I was like a little bit, I was like, okay, I think I got it. So the genesis to this was I was watching Alone, and I watched these shows with my kids. So I watched these kids. I got two little girls, 3 and or 4 recently, and 7. I watched all these shows with my kids, and because there's so many different lessons in there. I think for kids is like whether you're building shelter or making fire. Like, why did they pack this versus that? Like, there's so many different conversation points in this, especially for kids. It fires up their imagination. It gets them thinking about it. My girls are way into this stuff. Like, they're way into it, partly because I think I'm kind of pushing it. Like my 7-year-old, I've got her down to like, she can start a fire with a ferro rod in like no time. Like, it's like
That's awesome.
10 seconds. Like, she's like,
Yep.
done. We're off to the races. Shelter building and stuff like that. They're so fired up about this. So I'm watching, and I'm like, that dude's a fucking Marine. Why don't I know this dude? And then I'm watching a few more episodes, and then I was like, I DM you. I'm like, hey, man, you want to come on the show? And you're like, yeah. 24 hours later, whatever, you DM me back. Yeah, let's do it. So one, I'm excited because like I really do admire like the people that go out there and just fucking put it on the line and do the show. And 2, you're a vet, which is like, obviously we love vets here. Are you a vet, Keith?
I am.
Are you?
Yeah. I actually am retiring. Well, my last day in uniform was about a month ago, right? But technically, I'm still on the rolls.
That beard was looking good, man, for 30 days.
It's majestic. Right? But it's the novelty, right?
Yeah.
Because I haven't been able to have it. So I don't know if it'll stick around or not, though.
What'd you do?
So, Mark and I, how we kind of linked up was we ran the Mountain Sniper and Mountain Survival course together. And that's what...
He was actually my boss.
Yeah, which is
He was
crazy.
a dickhead whenever I first met him.
Were you the
Yeah.
NCIC?
Yeah, I was the staff in CIC for
Okay.
Mountain Scout Sniper, Mountain Survival, right? When Mark... shortly after that, I went the warrant officer route and became an infantry weapons officer, Marine gunner. But not many people really know what that is outside of the Marine Corps, so...
No, I've only heard of it. Heard of it. Like, it's interesting that you can do a warrant officer route in the infantry. It's different because I don't think you can actually do that. In the Army.
They don't have that in the Army. I think they're trying to start up something similar.
Right.
But it's the infantry weapons officers. I don't want to steal from Mark talking
good,
about
man.
the Alone piece, but
what is that? Yeah, tell me what that is, because that sounds cool as shit.
it is really cool.
It is
Go
the
ahead.
best rank in the entire military, in my opinion.
I really agree with that. Right, like so. You're just a subject matter expert on everything that goes bang, right? And you should be a subject matter expert on everything that goes bang that we employ, right? And that our adversaries employ.
Yeah.
And then you take that and you use it to help one safety backstop for the commanding officer on training, and then just to vet training plans and make sure they're as efficient as possible.
Right.
Right. So I mean that's really it, right? So all the stuff you don't like dealing with in the Marine Corps. Right? All the kind of bureaucracy type stuff that exists in every organization, it kind of falls away, right? Because you're just this like one of one guy in a unit, and you really get to focus on the stuff that matters to you, which is the lethality piece, right? Which was pretty cool. But to bring it back around full circle, so yeah, Mark worked for me at Mountain Sniper, but then he wound up, getting out and kind of doing his own thing, and I've worked for him probably, I don't know, a dozen times now. Yeah. And I think that's like the biggest compliment you can pay somebody, right? That works for you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when I first met Keith, mind you, like, I was warned about this dude. Like, this dude's
really?
a fucking asshole. He's going to come in here. I'm like, fuck. And I like, just run loose. And I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be good.
Right.
And lo and behold, like, he's just as wild as I am. And I was like, oh, we get along great.
Well, dude, it was the same, right? Because I stepped in first day, and the dude I was replacing, not young, right, but the other one. I stepped in. I'm like, all right, so who are your heavy hitters here, right? And who are the dudes that I need constant supervision,
right?
And he's like, well, Mark D'Ambrosio is constant supervision. He is like a constant pain. And so I'm like, all right. But I knew me and this guy didn't really see eye to eye on things. And I'm like, you know what? I bet Mark's probably going to wind up being my go-to dude. And within a month, right, I was like, yep, Mark's the man. So
isn't that funny? Like I remember multiple times, like stepping into situations where like that guy's an asshole, like, and you hear that, but then it takes you a while to realize that you also have to look at the person that's telling you that.
100%.
And then you're like, oh, if that guy thinks he's an asshole, we're going to get along great because there's no fucking way that guy likes me. There's no way.
Well, there's probably a lot of truth to it, right? Because before Mountain Sniper, I ran, the Scout Sniper Basic and Advanced, and running this basic course is like a different. I don't want to say attrition is the mission on a podcast out in public, but you're a little more.
You just did.
Yeah. Right? you're a little more. You're a little more. Tuned up and sadistic than maybe you were at some of the following courses.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like when them's the rules, man. Like, we all got to do it. Like,
right.
Them's the rules. Like, it's like just grind them up and spit them out.
Yeah.
Like,
so there's this whole generation of guys out there that probably had me as a basic instructor that are like, fuck, man, Parker. And then there's this whole generation of dudes that probably had me a mountain, and they're like, that dude's awesome, right?
Yeah.
But, so that's just kind of the way it goes. But
to be fair, I'm not defending you, but to be fair, when you're put into the role of being like your job is to slice it brings out something in your personality that you have obviously your professional left and right limit. And you're going to, for me, like I've been put into those situations where, I get fucking evil because I'm protecting the regiment, man. Like that's what you're in charge of doing. You're protecting the regiment from people that are going to quit, and from a guy that is passionate about like not allowing that fucking cancerous psychology to penetrate any fucking regiment. Like you got to be maniacal about fucking slaying those bodies.
Dude, because attitudes are contagious, right? So you
psychology is more contagious than the flu.
100%.
And that's where if they just understood, because that's where PC and military they don't actually, it's water and oil. It will never work because you got to be a fucking asshole when it comes to selection, who gives a shit?
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
So what's your attrit rate, do you think, on Scout Sniper Basic?
Well, any numbers that I give you now are super outdated, right? So, so anybody listening needs to take this with a grain of salt, right? Don't be a troll. But historic attrition rate runs about 50%, right?
Okay.
But there's peaks and valleys, right? It's lower than that right now. But that was the basic course, right?
Got it.
And then the following courses, you got advanced, urban, and mountain. Advanced and urban don't have a very high attrition rate. At least that was the case.
More professional development type.
Right. I mean, you're there. You're going to be carrying the bolt gun, whether you pass that or not, right? And then mountain had a pretty high attrition rate.
That was one of the highest.
Why?
Wind.
Wind. It was nothing to do with the instructor, right? We want everyone to pass because, like we just said, you're already carrying the gun. But it's just the terrain and the marksmanship qual did the work for you, right? So we were zero stress as instructors and a cadre out there on the students. But
and what was that? Because we took that attrition rate from, I want to say, almost 60%.
Yeah, it was
down
steep.
to 10%. The last three courses we were running as a cadre from 60% down to 10%, mind you, without changing any standards.
Right.
Everything remained the same. So like instruction, I mean, it just goes to show you have a passion for this stuff and you go and you teach it like what you can get people to do.
Yeah, the content, I think, of a course matters a whole lot less. Well, the program of instruction, right? And you guys, I have no doubt, had the same kind of thing, right? Like you had topics you had to meet, wickets you had to hit. And that just winds up being so much less important than who you have doing the teaching, right? Because you put a quality guy in there, you're going to get a quality product. Doesn't matter how superior or inferior the actual program is.
Right.
And the adverse is also true, right? Or the inverse is also true.
Where is that? So where's like the urban? Where's that course? host it?
Well, so the basic course, we run that in 3 locations. So you got out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, really Camp Geiger, but it's part of the Lejeune complex. You got one out of Camp Pendleton in California. And then they run one a year up in Quantico, Virginia also. And then the advanced course or team leaders course, the name changes from year to year. They run at the same locations. Actually, Quantico is the only place running that now. And then urban goes at Lejeune and Pendleton, and mountain goes out in Bridgeport, California.
Mountain Warfare Training Center.
Yeah,
Bridgeport. Yeah.
And
so how long were you in?
just over 20, about 20 and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were there.
Yeah.
the entire time.
The entire time.
The
right?
entire time. Holy shit! You saw the whole thing.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. I got a ton out of it, and I certainly feel like they got their money's worth out of me, right?
Yeah.
And
Did you start as a 0311 then and went in?
No, I started. This is a pretty funny story. I think this will be a good one for the podcast, right? But oh man, my dad's gonna hear this and probably be embarrassed, right? I hope my grandparents.
I was the fast company guy.
So my dad was a Marine also, right? And he hadn't been back to Lejeune since he got out in like 82. So I signed up and he's like, I'm going to take you down and drop you off for like infantry training, right? So this is after boot camp, we get dropped down. I got to check into Camp Lejeune. So he takes me down and I think we stay at like the hotel on base there, right? It used to be called the Hospitality House. But as we're pulling in the main gate, he looks over and he's like, holy shit. I can't believe the driftwood is still here, right? And you're looking at me like, what's the driftwood? So anybody that's spent any time at Lejeune listening is like, oh yeah, the driftwood. It was an institution. It was a.
What is it?
It was a strip club. It was a gentleman's club.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right outside the front gate. And my dad, we drop our stuff in the hotel. I think I'm 18, 19 years old, and I see him like getting dressed to go out, right? And I'm like, where are we going? He's like, come on, we're going out, grab a bite to eat. And we pull into the driftwood. Well, I don't know what this is, right? So I'm thinking it's like an Applebee's, And we walk in, and I realize immediately, I'm like, man, this is the most awkward thing ever, right? Because I've met,
And
but my dad is like totally regressed. It's like it's 1982 for him.
Oh yeah.
And we go in, and I'm like, I don't even know how to act, right? Because I've been there with my dad, and I think it's probably the first time I'd ever been in a gentleman's club. But we get in there, and there's this lonely looking master guns in there. He's like retiring the next week, and somehow my dad starts talking to him, and this guy's like a stereotypical old school, like grizzled looking Marine. He's like slugging back Jack and Cokes and by himself in the club. And anyway, dad starts talking. He's like, hey, my son just signed up. He's going to training. You got any tips for him? He's like, what are you doing? He's like, infantry. He's like, be a tow gunner. he's like, you won't have to walk anywhere. You get to do machine guns and missiles. And I'm like, all right, that sounds cool. So
Horrible advice.
So solely on the advice of this like inebriated master guns in a strip club outside the main gate of Camp Lejeune, we get to ITB and we have to write down our preferences, and because you don't know, you think like I'm going to be a Marine and I'm going to be in the infantry. You don't realize there's all these subsets. And so I put tow gunner, and that's what I wound up being for the first couple of years before I went over to snipers, right? So that was a very long answer to a short question.
No, it's a great answer.
I'll try to keep it more concise. But.
No, you don't have to. This is a long show, so this is what we're here to do. And then, what year did you come in?
2008. Later.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I waited a while to join. So,
yeah. So, and are you originally from Washington?
No.
Yeah, where are you from?
No, I would never claim Washington. I just tried to buy a carbine here in this state, and they're like, we can't sell to you because you are not allowed 30-round magazines.
Right.
I was like, leave the damn magazine.
Yeah.
No.
Let me buy the rifle.
Originally from Florida, I guess I'll say that. I'm not proud of that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about Nevada? Yeah. I lived there for a bit. Can I claim that?
Yeah, you can claim whatever you want.
Now, I lived in Florida. That's where I joined from. So, went over to Okinawa for a bit.
Yeah.
Bridgeport, Lejeune.
So, were you an infantry guy first?
Recon baby, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, whenever I was getting ready to join, I was like, Googling, what the fuck is bad?
Yeah.
Trying to see with my buddy, and saw this guy coming out of the water with a ghillie suit and a rifle and some scuba tank, probably. I don't even know. Probably had a mask on. I'm like,
dragon.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's it. So I trained for like 2 years and I gained 60 pounds. And my buddy lost like probably 100. He was a fat motherfucker. So he lost a little bit of weight. I gained a little bit of weight. We both joined at the same time 2 years later and, went straight there. And at that point, I was like, Force Recon. Yeah. And then I remember I was in boot camp. They're like, Force Recon doesn't exist anymore. And I was like, what are you telling me? But no, I went up to the basic reconnaissance course and did that. And
so did they get rid of Force?
Like 2006, they pretty much lowered a flag and raised another one, called it MARSOC.
I didn't realize they got rid of Force.
Well, they pretty much took they
for a minute.
took all the Force guys
and then made a MARSOC.
And pretty much, and just decimated the amount of guys that they had in that that section. So when I got there in 2008, they were already standing it back up. And I'm sure 2007 they probably still had some stuff too.
Yeah, my buddy Zach, he was. Have you ever met him?
I don't think so, but the name Iskell rings a bell. So
he's
maybe
a great dude. He's actually running for treasurer in New York right now. He's a great guy. He's an officer. I don't hold that against him. He was a great Marine, great guy. But anyway, whatever. I digress. He's a great dude. And for a guy that lives in New York, not too bad.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I'm right, man, we need to get more good, solid dudes up there, right?
I know. So, yeah, you got to like put more people into those positions. But so you were in the Marines for how long?
Just under 10 years.
So quite a while for both you guys. Like you saw like a whole litany of different things in the Marine Corps. You're just now getting out. It's interesting I'd love to hear your perspective on the woke military.
Man, I was actually thinking about that on the drive over here.
Were you?
Well,
did you think I was going to ask you, or were you just like thinking about it?
I want to talk about it, really, right? But I also don't have my DD-214 for like another couple months.
This won't come out, so it'll be out after you do DD-214. Don't worry about it.
When's this airing?
Yeah, a couple weeks.
Well, I need like a month and a half, but so I'll keep it PG. But Mark, before we get into that, right? Mark did over, just over 10, right? But he would have stayed in. I mean, I think that was the plan, but his like level of awesomeness that he did, well, it wound up resulting in like 0% hearing, right? So he wasn't able to do the dive stuff anymore, and so I think it was kind of like either, hey, do you want to become a clerk or do you want to?
Oh yeah, those were my options,
civilian.
Man.
So you didn't want to become a clerk?
I thought about it long and hard, and I was like, no, I'll take the other option. So I decided to get out.
So,
but yeah, talk about a bummer, man. Re-enlisting, getting ready to do another 4. I did like 2 out of it, almost 2 out of it, and they're like, nah, you got to go. Your hearing's not good. I'm like, fucking seriously? I could put my headset up right here, right? And I can hear what my team's saying and hear what's going on the comms. Fuck this here.
Well, what's crazy? And you have this like crazy high performer in Mark, and we couldn't find a way, like via hearing aids, amplified hearing protection, right, to keep him in or get some kind of variance to the regulation. But at the same time, we had, in the same time period, we had platoon sergeants and platoon commanders in the infantry running around with one leg, right, and one eyeball, right. Yeah. So it was sad, just a mismanagement of talent that happened there a little bit.
But the thing is, anybody that joins the military, they got to get out at some point, whether it's 20 years, 10 years, 30 years. And so, I looked at that and I was like, got to call it at some time. So, took it for what I was able to do with it. And it was an awesome time, and, start pushing on from there.
So once you transition out, you go into the civilian side. What'd you end up doing?
So this is what happened. I started my business immediately. I was like, international mountain survival. I'm going to teach survival. Love it.
Well, because you gravitated towards that. Right?
Had a lot of law enforcement agencies contact me saying, hey, we want you to teach high angle shooting. I'm like, you're paying me. Give me some money. I'm like broke over here. So it turned into more high angle shooting instruction than anything.
Right.
And then I was like, man, I just want to be able to do something operationally. So I was like, all right, I went to the CIA and I was like, all right, applied to there and got through the interview process. I was pretty proud of getting through it until I got to the hearing and they told me to go fuck myself. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, all right, man, that sucks. All right, well, I'll go to I'll be a Washington fish cop. Yeah. I was like, solid in the woods, 24/7, hunting, fishing. Like, I'll go do that. Good job. Same thing all the way through it. And when they told me I couldn't be a fish cop, I was pissed. I mean, I was mad. I was like, I can hear good enough for that at least. And
what do you need to hear? Fish?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Do they say anything?
No.
They don't say anything of substance.
And so I at that moment, I realized like you will be owning and running your own businesses from here on out. So, did that and been teaching shooting, survival, obviously went and did a loan. That was a hell of a good time. But
how was that? Like, what was the genesis to that? Had you been watching the show and were you like,
I saw it every single year. When that show came out, I remember there's a buddy of ours, Jerry Saunders, and we were sitting there and we were really like the two guys that loved survival there.
Yeah.
And then Keith like got there and he was like, he jumped on board with that. And
you're into survival too?
Yeah, I am, right? But I didn't have to get as in the weeds on the survival stuff when we were up there running it. I could kind of like play with it at my leisure and kind of get into the stuff I liked.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to do that because Mark and the guy he just mentioned, Jerry Saunders, were super into it. So they took it like to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just kind of ran with the students. And
so,
I just made sure they had like trucks,
Yeah.
like wanted to get in and out, right?
So, growing up in the country, hunting, fishing, whatever, you join the military. And I grew up like hunting and surfing. So it's kind of weird.
Right.
Never watched any sports. I could really give two shits about watching any sports. I never did. But like going out there and just being in the wilderness has always been my thing. And so I got stationed in Okinawa, my first deployment or my first enlistment. And they were like, hey, where do you want to go after this? I was like, somewhere I can hunt in man country. God's country. And so they took me to, my boss, Glenn Cedarholm, told me at the time, he was like, you need to go to Bridgeport, And I was like, all right, cool. So I went up there and best duty station I've ever had in my life.
Without a doubt.
Really?
I mean, we were able to teach high angle sniper courses and survival courses, and that's all we did. It was 24/7.
You know what? Probably the only like consistent positive thing I've heard from every Marine in the last 20 years.
Bridgeport.
Oh, yeah.
Like everybody else has varying opinions on a wide variety of things and they disagree about everything. But one unifying thing, I've never heard somebody say, Bridgeport fucking sucks. I've never heard one guy say that.
If you're an outdoorsman, if you like the woods and you like doing kind of like man stuff, right? Yeah. There is no better duty station in the DOD.
Really?
Yeah, in my opinion.
Right? Location. In the Sierra Nevadas.
Yeah. And so they teach mountaineering and like skiing up there, right? So if any hobby you want to get into in the outdoors, it becomes your job. Mm-hmm. So the guys up there are so passionate about what they're teaching and instructing because it's what they do in their off time.
Right.
But man, we would do, Fridays, if we didn't have a course on deck, we would check out ski passes and that would be like we would have sustainment training. We would go to Mammoth and we'd spend the day skiing, right? Mm-hmm. Or we'd wrap it up early and go, shoot coyotes for sustainment, right? And it was, that's good. It's good training because they're a small target. They don't stay still very long. They blend in with the terrain unless there's snow on the ground. So it's an observation exercise too. It's good.
Oh, yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah, and it's just a great time.
Yeah,
right?
it's a great time. Well, it's funny because, I used to do that, kind of on my own. There are different guys that are gravitated towards different things in the military, and some guys are gravitated towards like the outdoors, and that's what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And that was my thing, right? So I was like way into kayaking and rafting and running boats down rivers, and then I started doing some skiing. But then it's funny because I started telemark, right? Well, there's only two people that telemark ski, and people don't understand this.
Yeah.
Two types of people.
Old dudes.
Old fucking hippie deadheads. and dudes like us. Like, it's like, and dudes are like, I got to move weight. I got to fucking go, from point A to point B. I got to be able to turn. I don't give a fuck how much it's going to cost me in caloric, output. This is, So I used to skin up in the mornings on these hills. I'd go out to whatever, Ski Hill X, and I would skin up for my workout and get like one run in because by the time I got to the top, I'd get like one run in and then I'd drink a pitcher of beer and then I'd go back and do like another, just like drunk doing the other one. I'm like, but it's so funny because I'd be able to talk to these old crusty hippies out in Colorado, like trying to get teleski lessons. And it was only like hippies and military guys. Like very rarely would you find this in between that's like, I'm into this shit.
If you see a young guy on teleskis, I'm always like, that guy's legit.
Yeah.
I don't know anything
I know, right? Like freewheel fucking weirdos.
Yeah.
They are fucking weird. It's so funny because my friends used to make fucking fun of me. They're like, you and your fucking hippie shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I'm into logistics. That's what I keep telling people. Like, I'm into the logistics of the adventure. Like,
Right.
I got to know how to ski. I got to know how to climb.
because you're a
I
professional, right? That's the old adage.
got to do it all. You got to know how to run a river. You got to know how to fucking, do all of this shit. But I couldn't get really deep. Like, there are some guys that are like, I'm a fucking ice climber and that's what I do. And that's the only thing I do. I'm like, I don't got time for that. I got to figure out like, because once we get through this piece, there's a whole backside that I got to be familiar with.
Yeah.
On that other backside. So Bridgeport seems like that place where you've got so many different varying terrains too. You guys could go down the fucking rabbit hole on just about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, the elevation change there is pretty good. And man.
Yeah. I went through there as a student, right? And it was kind of late in my career because Mountain Sniper is kind of like I don't want to overstate it, but I'm going to, right? It's kind of like the white whale for snipers because they don't run courses very often. They usually don't sync up very well with units teeps.
Right.
There's not a lot of seats. So it's kind of like the most difficult one to get to. That and urban, right? Because you don't get an urban seat unless you're on a marine expedition
Right.
out with them. So it took me a while to get to mountain. And then I went through there and I was like, what the glorious is going on up here? And we drove through this little town of Bridgeport. And I was like, man, this looks like a really cool town too. Because you drive through, we don't shoot there at the base, right? We go over to Hawthorne, it's an Army depot, and we shoot there. And really cool terrain. I mean, it looks like Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
Like if somebody blindfolded you and like flew you in a plane for 12 hours and just dropped you there, you'd be like, holy shit, I'm in Afghanistan, right? So, but anyways, it came time for orders a couple years later, and I was a gunny, right, or E7, and the only place I could stay in snipers was running one of the sniper schools.
Staff sergeant. He's a staff sergeant at this point.
Yeah, but I was selected for gunny, right? So I knew like my time was coming, right? I'd reached service life,
right?
So I was like, fuck, So and so we all know each other. So I'm calling all the schoolhouses. And I'm like, when are you rotating out of there? And the only thing that was really coming up was Bridgeport, and I'm like, perfect. And so we was able to get orders out there, and we wound up. It was the first place. I'm rambling about this, but it's because I love Bridgeport so much. It was the first place that I really developed friends outside of the military in 13 years, right? Yeah. When we got stationed there, because we lived in the little town, which is further away from civilization than the base. Everybody else kind of lives towards Gardnerville and down towards base housing. And, and they became lifelong friends. I remember my wife, it's a tiny town. It's like 500 people in the winter, right? And I remember when we got there, my wife was like, dear God, where did you put me?
He was the only one on that base that lived in that town.
Yeah.
Oh, seriously?
Oh, yeah. The only person.
Where else are you going to get that experience, right? While you're in the service. And, lifelong friends. I mean, these guys, they just flew out and surprised, like the whole town, right? Flew out to North Carolina and surprised my wife with a baby shower. So I told them I was riding up here with Mark today, and
is that where you live now? Is back in?
I'm back in North Carolina right now for a little bit. I don't know. I'm trying to get out of
you gotta get out of
the East Coast. I need some more space.
Yeah,
and less humidity and mosquitoes. But
yeah, I mean, I love North Carolina. For short amounts of time, but I wouldn't want to live there. I know a ton of people who love it, and I'm like, but that's my whole thing with the West. And even I went down to Texas for about a year and a half. And I had to come back here because of the wide open spaces. Yeah. Texas has so much private land too. If you don't know somebody with a high fence ranch, or you're going to drive 6 hours, I can drive 45 minutes out of town and go muley hunting. On Friday afternoon, and be up in the field, doing my thing.
Fact. And that's the thing, right? If you live, and I love North Carolina, I love Virginia. I don't mean to make it sound like I don't. I was born in North Carolina. I grew up in Virginia. And so I've got I like the East Coast. But,
yeah, so do I.
But it's just the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I were going to live on the East Coast, I need 125 acres.
Yeah.
So that I can execute all my ignorant bitchery, right?
Right.
If I live out West, I just need the right 2 acres.
Yeah, exactly. Either right 2 acres or a quarter acre, depending on where you're at.
Right.
Back it up.
So shifting back to Alone in the context of you've been watching the show.
Yep.
You'd seen it. So was it more of hey, I'm going to fucking do this? Or was it I'm just going to drop a packet and see what it goes?
So I didn't drop a packet, actually.
Oh, you didn't?
This might piss a lot of people off. Yeah, I was Donnie Dust. He was on season 6, the season before me. And,
okay, yeah.
Me and my buddy Jerry ended up going through one of his courses like 2 years before, because even though you're an instructor, you always can learn more. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was like, hey, we're going to, even with my own business, do some sustainment training.
Mm-hmm.
And he went out there, he recommended me. And when he said, hey, do you want to go do this? I was like, well, what kind of question is that? Absolutely. This is the most realistic survival situation you could ever put yourself in.
Yeah.
So, they told me, they called me up, hey, send in some videos. I think I was in like the top 40 or something like that. Sent my videos in. They're like, hey, congratulations. You're going to go to New York and compete. I was like,
oh shit, you guys have to compete.
Oh, you compete.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. You can't just go, because they want to pick the best people possible for their show.
Sure.
And I understand some of the seasons may have seemed like that wasn't the case.
Right.
But like they showed them at some point that they deserve to be there. Right. And so the people that are going out there, they want you to last a long time. You get more footage.
Fuck yeah.
You could use it, more drama, more people trying to get eaten by bears and shit. So, they were like, hey, you're in the top 22 or whatever, go to New York and compete. And went there, competed.
Can you tell us what the competition
Oh, it's ridiculous. Like? Well, first off, started off, I don't know if I can, but I'm going to do it anyways. Started off and we did a swim qualification.
Okay.
And obviously with my reconnaissance background, I'm like, I'm going to race. So I'm going to beat your ass. I'm going to beat your ass. Hauled ass back. And I'm like legitimately tired. I'm like, okay. But, I beat everybody. That's important. So we come back and then it was a pointless race, but they just wanted to make sure you could float.
You could float, right.
You come back up, you start a fire with a ferro rod.
Right.
Did that. You start a fire with bow drill.
That's
okay,
cool.
Do that. And they just start placing, hey, how do you cook this? How do you cook that? How do you build a shelter? What are you going to do in this situation type thing? Can you use a knife safely?
Right. Yeah.
So they do that. They have some survival consultants out there. And let me tell you, man, those guys are knowledgeable.
I can imagine.
They've done every single season of Alone. So they've got to go to every different location, learn from those locals, those indigenous people. And so, learned a lot from them, just hanging out with them for a couple of days. Went back home, got the phone call around May or June, July, I don't know, probably July or June. Hey, you got selected. You got a couple months to prepare, buy all your gear. Don't do anything stupid or we'll replace you.
So when you get your list of possible items, how did you go through like your prioritization of like your list?
So I looked at it like this. Our challenge was a little bit different. It was a 100-day challenge.
Yep.
We knew we had to make it 100 days. So this lazy ass mentality that you've seen in the past in previous seasons where you're going to go out there and just relax and lay down. That's not going to cut it.
Right.
You'll never make it.
You got
to work your ass off. So with that in mind, I looked at it, I'm like, hey, do I want food? Fuck no. That's only going to last me so long.
Right.
Because what was the option for food? You could take
there's beef jerky, pemmican.
Fuck, I didn't know
there's
that.
like a pound, but you only get a certain amount.
Right. Okay.
So it's like, hey, you can get a pound of pemmican, 2 pounds, whatever the heck it is.
It's like you get to take an emergency ration.
And all the gear, if you go online, you look it up Alone, you can see all the possibilities you can select from. And every season's a little bit different. Like sometimes you might have a fishing kit, but it's not going to have barbed hooks.
Gotcha.
Like our season, which sucked. But I wanted things that produce food.
Yeah.
So 550 cord. I knew I was making a gill net, and I knew that because the previous season was there. And we knew the general area we were going to.
Right.
I was like, all right, gill net, trapping line, trapping wire, definitely a bow. Everything that I can try and catch or provide myself with food.
Right.
So brought all those. I didn't bring a fixed blade knife, but I did bring my Leatherman.
Right.
Brought an axe. Obviously, you wouldn't go anywhere in the wilderness without an axe. The saw that I brought is a silky boy. I watched Roland. The guy,
dude.
I watched Roland saw, and when I first saw him going out, I was like, that's fucking stupid.
Seriously,
look how big that
that's
is.
what I said too. I was
And
like,
then
dude, that thing is so big.
I was
what
out
the
there.
fuck?
I was out there and I was like, fuck. I wish I had Roland saw so I could sharpen it. Because by like day 30-something, you're cutting wood every single day. Every single day. I mean, really, it's build your shelter.
Yeah.
Provide food.
Right.
And your water's there, you're going to boil that, but it's like firewood.
Right.
Firewood, film yourself, firewood, film yourself. But like, so with that being said, like couldn't sharpen the damn saw.
Oh yeah.
Starting fires, obviously you had a ferro rod, that was easy, but man, the saw was the one thing I probably I learned a lot from Roland actually watching that show. So
dude, I want to get into Roland, but I get as soon as like he started in on like Rock House, I was like, oh, this fucking dude's gonna win. Like, no offense to you, I just saw that. I was like, oh, this dude's on another fucking level. Like,
and for how old he is, moving those rocks,
like that guy is like. I mean, I hope I grow up to be like that fucking like his heart.
Caleb, did you know? With Black Rifle Coffee's Coffee Club subscription, you can get fresh coffee shipped to you every month. What? You don't even have to go to the store. Whoa. You don't even have to leave your bed. What? Wow. How did you get in here?
You might want to go ahead and join the Black Rifle Coffee Club subscription before one of these guys shows up at your place.
Watching him eat the fucking the intestines or not, no, the inside stomachs, the stomach contents from his fucking muskox. Watching him kill his muskox, you're like, dude, this dude is fucking knife, crazy,
right?
It's awesome, like because I know rednecks like that are just like straight up fucking like hillbilly hard, like just hard, and they can do anything. They can fucking fix a chainsaw, they can weld, they can fucking do anything, and you always know they're hard, but you actually got to see some hard shit. Like I was blown away by it, man.
He's your modern day Jeremiah Johnson.
Yeah.
100%. So,
like have you talked to him after the show? Or at all?
No, I don't talk to Roland.
You don't?
We don't get along. But he doesn't get along with anybody. He's a Jeremiah Johnson.
Well, yeah, he's a loner. That's what I was wondering. Like, it doesn't seem like he gets along with anybody.
No,
right?
But you know,
he doesn't socialize. Like he's like, I'm going off grid.
We didn't dislike each other. We just, it keeps to himself.
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, I watched that show, my own season, and I'm like learning shit from Roland. I'm like, this is badass. You know?
Well, everybody on this season, I thought, because I've seen it, I saw the first couple seasons, and I took a break for a couple seasons, right? Then I came back to it, but it seemed like the crew that you guys had out there,
every single person was fucking awesome.
Awesome.
From Sean, everybody, you kind of see him leave in the very beginning because it's Ferro Rob. They don't understand the realities of what really happens, right, with production and editing and stuff like that. From Sean to Amos to Callie and Kai, those two women,
dude, they crushed it.
Absolutely crushed it. Everybody had absolutely fantastic crew. Like all of us were still extremely close.
They I mean, like that entire cast, like competing against them, like thinking about like just competing in the level of competition that you had out there, like, bro.
But it really wasn't, because ours is a little bit different,
You're
right?
competing against yourself.
100%.
Right.
But this is the first season that did that.
Right.
Because in the other seasons, you're looking at everybody going, I got to last longer than you. But in this season, you're like, I just got to make it to 100 days. I only have to make it. I have to make it to 100 days.
Yeah.
So, is that battle, but I think a lot of people look at that, they're like, oh, I think that's easier mentally. But then also like, you got to make it to a fucking 100 days. And we're talking 100 days in the subarctic with 10 items, right? Inserted right before winter, and rules, barbless hooks, no fur-bearing animals, like all these damn rules put into place. There's the Canadian rules, the production rules, the indigenous people's rules.
Yeah, and we don't realize that.
Yeah, you don't know that. And then you've got, on top of all that shit, you've got to fucking film all this.
Yeah, and you got to film it. So you got to lug around your gear.
And they bring up a good point. They're like, hey, if you don't film it, no one's ever going to see what happens. And you're like, that's true. And we always said in the Marine Corps, like, you got a picture? That didn't fucking happen, did it?
Right.
I killed a coyote at 1,700 yards. Show me the video. Nope. Don't believe you.
Don't believe you.
And it's the same thing with this show. So it was, but
So when you're selecting, so like clothing was one of the questions I had was, you went out, you had a bunch of Cryptek.
Oh man, I straight up jumped to my hunting clothing because I was like, I know this stuff works.
Right.
It's going to keep me warm. It's going to keep me dry. And I went with the stuff that I know.
Do you have a cap on how many clothing items you can take and what you can take?
There is a limit, but it's a ridiculous amount of clothing.
Is it really?
Yeah. So you've got enough clothing out there. There's no shortage on that. And when you guys look at the gear list, I think, actually, I don't know if the public kind of sees that gear list, but they take care of you in clothing.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to worry about that. But the other items,
like the actual survival items, clothing is not one of those.
Nope.
So yeah, that was one of the things. I was talking to my buddy Trevor Thompson. He's a former Navy guy. He's been on the show a lot. So he's going through the gear list right now. He's kind of like thinking about it, or he's already been proposed like to be on it or something like that. And he's like, yeah, it's like, dude, you get clothing.
Yeah.
He's like, I thought that might be like part of it, but you have your 10 items, but there's things that you can select from. Now, if you find something outside of the list, can you say, hey, I want to bring this, and do they have to clear it?
Yeah,
or?
they got to clear. So
Okay.
like Sean, he brought this auger that he made, and that was kind of his thing that he builds and does for work and stuff. And so he had to get it cleared with them. And, all of us were like, hell yeah, bring that out there. Like, we don't think it's an unfair advantage.
Right.
As long as everybody could bring his tool out there if we wanted to.
Got it.
So you just got to get it clear, but it's very, very rare. So like, that was a real big exception. So most of the time they're not going to make exceptions.
So how long do you have on the ground before you guys get inserted?
Man, I don't know. I think we had like 7 or 8 days.
Okay.
So, and they're really trying to show you how to use the camera still. You're getting acclimatized to the area. They're kind of hanging out. Man, what did we do? Oh, they give you, a little runaround and say, hey, this is your general vicinity.
Oh, gotcha.
They're trying to set you up for success.
Right.
They don't want you to go out there and last one day and get scared by a damn bear and run off.
Right.
They want you to go out there and last 100 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we spent about 8 days, I think, hanging out and getting to know each other. And that's when you like built that relationship, because when you're all in the same boat and you're not really competing against each other, you're competing against yourself, you can get along.
Right.
Otherwise, I would have been jacking their shit, breaking everything. Like,
looks like your saw's dull as shit.
Sucks to suck, nerds.
Dude. Well, so you get out there and you get on the ground. Is there anything that when you hit the ground within like 24 hours, you're like, man, I wish I would have fucking grabbed that?
Nope. Man, I still look at my gear list and I'm like, besides changing the saw out, I wouldn't have changed a damn thing. Super happy with the gear list that I brought. And when you insert, they do talk about that drop shock. I didn't personally experience it. And maybe that's because everybody goes through different things in life, right?
Right.
But like, I wasn't like, oh, this is crazy. I was like, get the fucking work, motherfucker, because you got to put some food on the table.
Yeah.
So that was the only thing going through my head is shelter, boom, get it up, and food.
Yeah, it looked to me, right? So from the viewer's perspective, it looked like you're kicking ass. Like if you would have told me within the first couple episodes, if I put money on it, like I was putting money on you and Roland. That's where my wife and I will always
appreciate that, man.
Bet. I was like,
nice to hear.
You're kicking ass. Like, and because you had a positive mental attitude, you're fucking crushing like the shelter builds. It looked like it. Did it feel like you were making good ground?
Man, I didn't know because, you don't know how everybody else is doing in that same environment. So you don't know if you're catching a lot of food or if you're not catching any. And I will say, once I got my shelter up and done, you got to, change your plan as you go, obviously, adapt. My plan was to build a temporary shelter and then my permanent.
Right.
I got out there and I was like, nope, going permanent right now, all in. But when I built my gill net on day 5 and got it in the water, and I pulled 2 giant lake trout out this big, the first damn day, I was pretty pumped.
Yeah.
I'd only caught 1 fish. They don't show that on there, but I caught 1 fish with a hand line. With the hand line. Before that, I think a squirrel or 2 with my bow. And so when I pulled out this fish, this damn big,
right?
I'm like, and then the next day, 4 fish, this damn big. I was like, this is game time. Get the net in. And I was really bummed I didn't bring a gill. I guess I wouldn't have changed anything because I wouldn't know I was going to that location, right? But if I would have said, screw the fishing line and brought 2 gill, like a gill net and the 550 cord, technically I could have had 2 out there. I don't even know if that's illegal or not, but
Right.
I could have had 2 because that brought in like 350 pounds of fish for me.
Got it.
That's a lot of damn.
That's a fucking
That's a lot of
ton.
damn
Massive
fish.
amount of fish.
That's a ton amount
Yep.
of fish. So, talk me through the psychology. Like, what was happening in your mind?
Man, so when I went out there, I didn't know how long I was going to last. I'm
Right.
not cocky enough to sit there and be like, I'm going to last 100 days. Absolutely. I was like, I know I'll make it 3. I know I can go 3 to 5 days. I've done that by myself before, by
Right.
myself. And I was like, you're going to find out real quick if you like yourself or not while you're out there.
Right.
So I got to day 10 and I was like, oh, fuck, 10 days in. This is awesome. And I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
Every day the sun came out. That was a good day. Every day
Right.
it snowed. That's a good day. Every day I caught something in my traps. That's a good day.
Right.
So it was just like every day was a damn good day. I had like only a couple days that were shit. And got to day 20. And I was like, this is not bad at all. Got to day
Right.
30. I'm like having fun. I'm like, yeah. Like, having fish everywhere. I'm just hunting 24/7. I'm in heaven. I shit my sleeping bag on day 10, mind you. So like that's like a pretty bad thing to have to go through and
Yeah.
clean up. But I still had a good day because
Right.
I had a bunch of fish, and I was like, let's go find some reindeer moss and clog myself up.
Right.
Because I thought it was from all that fish fat and all the oils, right?
Right.
So day 35 though, man, that was a game changer. I went on a hike to go hunting. Day 34, and I'm like, I gotta find moose. Have to find big
Yeah.
game animal. So it just snowed like 2 days ago. I'm gonna hike as far north as I possibly can go. Then I'm gonna hike east to west as far as I can go and see if I can cut any moose tracks. There wasn't shit. And it was 2 days of snow on the ground. Nothing in my entire AO. So I was like, all right. Came back, went to sleep, slept about an hour that night, couldn't sleep on my side. And I was like, yeah. And game started changing from there. So, I mean,
What was it? Was it the sleep cutting in? Do you know why? Why you weren't sleeping, or
I do now.
why?
Because I ended up contracting trichinosis. So
There
day
you
10,
go.
yeah, day 10 when I ended up shitting my sleeping bag.
Yeah.
When I'm talking like that was a horrible experience. We're talking like straight liquid. And the only sleeping bag you got out there, and you don't have any soap. So I'm like waking up at 1 a.m., going down to the lake, like, this is cold, this sucks, starting my fire up, washing everything off. But I legit thought it was from the fish, fish fat and oils.
Right.
So day 35, the breathing started getting difficult.
Yeah.
Sleeping. I'm a side sleeper, couldn't sleep on my sides, had a pain in my right shoulder. I'm like, ugh. So day 35, like when that happened, I mean, it was just a straight, complete difference in my physical abilities. And I was like, man, better find some more blueberries out there or something.
Right.
Like, gonna make myself a kale salad or something because this diet
That'll fix
sucks. I was like, I thought fish would be amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm out there, and day 40 comes around, and by day 40, I'm like, it's starting to get to me because
Yeah.
no sleep,
Right.
sleep deprived now for 5 days, like not sleeping but 1 hour a night, if that. And my shelter catches on fire,
Yeah.
and I'm like, fuck this. And I locked my door on the inside for bears, right, in case
Yeah.
they tried to open it. And I'm like undoing it. I'm watching like it's on fire. I'm undoing my shelter with the camera in my damn hand, running around, and the top of my shelter is completely on fire. I'm ripping off flaming balls
Yeah.
of moss, and I'm like, got to get this thing out because there's no fucking way I'm going to let my shelter burn down because you would never let it down ever, right?
Well, that's like the one thing we talked about before you left for the show, right? Because we were talking a bunch,
Yep.
you know. And I'm like, man, just, don't catch your shelter on fire, right? Like, just
Right.
Yeah.
So, but you don't understand like how much fire prevention went into that damn shelter. So every day, like you go on the backside and you get all the soot off of everything, and you put it far enough away from everything. You keep a small fire. I even put rocks up on top, right, to
Right.
try and disperse those small embers that would kick off. But man, there was just soot that got up into the pine boughs.
Yeah.
And so that was a damn good learning lesson from me, right? I wanted to build a shelter without the damn tarp.
Yep.
Because I was like, but ended up, I should have used that tarp around that fire. The first thing is what I should have done, or done it differently, but whatever. Cleaned off in between, busted it out, redone it. So my shelter caught fire, and I put it out, took a breath. I was like, whew. And I was like, hell yeah, put it out. And I was pretty excited because that was a shitty situation, right?
Right.
Now I have the chance to overcome that
Mhm.
and do better. So day 41, I rebuilt it, and it was a better shelter than it was when I first built it. I had more light coming in because I used my tarp. It was just a good situation to be in. And I think I had an adrenaline rush because day 41, I don't remember sucking. But day 42, it just went straight back downhill. And I remember I was like, it's bad. Like the breathing's super difficult. And I'm like, and I didn't know anything was medically wrong with me.
Right.
I just thought it was my damn diet. And so I'm out there and I'm like, I know I can't make it to 100 days because I keep digressing. Keep digressing. And in the show, they kind of show it like, oh, you missed your son. See you later.
Yeah.
And that's because I wasn't complaining. I'm not one to sit there and complain about.
Most people that we know aren't.
Yeah,
so we won't
right.
complain,
And I don't want to show that. I'm like,
Right.
whatever. So when I decided to tap, I'm like, screw it. I'm done. All right. And I called production. I was like, hey, come get me. I'm done. And they're like, why? I'm like, I'm fucking tired, man. I was like, I'm tired. They're like, you're tired? I'm like, I'm tired. And I was like, I've done some hard shit in my life. And I was like, I'm fucking exhausted. I'm going to go get firewood on day 44. I went out there because I was going to make it to day 45. I was like, oh, go to 45. Go to every day by day. You just keep pushing it. And I pushed it 10 days. And I'll tell you, I went to go get firewood and I'm dragging these 2 little sticks back. And I'm like, all right. Got to call it, man. You got to call it. So I called it. And they're like, what's wrong? I was like, man, I'm just tired. Just take me back. Give me a Snickers bar. Right. They get me back and they're like, all right, you get checked out by an EMT. They're like, you got a fever of 104. I was like, or they said you got a fever of 39.9 degrees Celsius. Right. I'm like, all right, what the fuck is that in Fahrenheit? I'm an American, damn it. And they were like, it's not that bad. And I'm like, all right. So I looked it up on my phone. I think I had my phone at that time. I'm like, it's 104. I'm like,
it's not that bad.
It's not that bad. But I mean, like 105 is pretty serious.
Yeah.
We're 1 degree off from that. So it never went away for like 2 days. It's just consistent 104. And then the EMT was like, hey, he checked my blood pressure or something when I was laying down. And he stayed the night with me that night. He started getting concerned. He's like, yeah, something's wrong with you. I'm like, dude, just get me out of here. I got to get back to work. I didn't win $1 million.
Right.
Like, I got to start making money again.
I got to go back to work.
Yeah, because you figure you stopped working. Probably when I found out that news, I was like, prep.
Yeah.
All my energy and time and money went into prepping and trying to do that show. So I was like, I got to get back at it. I was like, get me out of Canada. And we got to take you to the hospital. All right, cool. So I get to the hospital. That's when the whole thing came out. They're like, hey, you're interesting. And I was like, what's up? And I remember joking with the doctor.
Right.
And I was like, he was sitting there feeling the back of my neck and stuff. And I was like, what are you giving him a massage? What's going on here? And he's like, actually, I'm checking you for blah, 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 because it can kill you like that. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll shut up. Do I have that? Do I have that? No.
Probably shut the fuck up now.
Yeah. So Canada's healthcare system is complete horse shit in my opinion, and I'm not a big fan of it. So I went there, and because the way it is, it is the way it is. But they took my blood. They knew I had a parasite, and they were like, hey, your white blood cell count whenever you have a parasite, like a high number would be like 4,000. That's like a bad parasite. They're like, yours is 11,000.
So you got a really bad parasite.
I was like, all right, man, damn, that sucks. And they're like, yeah, so we're going to start treating you for, talking to him a little bit, typhoid tularemia and trichinosis. Started treating it the next day. They never admitted me to the hospital, mind you. Yeah, good job, Canada. So I'm in there and I went back to the hospital the next day and they checked my organs. They're like, oh, okay, your liver and your spleen are infected and enlarged, and that pain that you felt on your right shoulder is a fluid behind your right lung.
What?
And I was like, oh, fuck. All right. And this new doctor said, he's like, hey, man, I don't know why we have you on this other antibiotic. It's not going to do shit for you. And at that moment, I was like, get me the fuck out of here right now, because the main doctor wasn't letting me go. So it's in my head now that I've got this parasite and it's bad. So that night, I'm in the hotel, still in the hotel. And my nose started bleeding. And I'm like, it's in my brain.
Of course.
I called production.
It's in my brain.
Yeah, it's in there. I called production. I was like, get me to the hospital. I said, get me back to the States. They're like, what's going on? I'm like, it's in my brain. Get a bird spun up. What's the flight time to Edmonton? Blah, 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 blah. I get to the hospital. I freak out on them. They're like, calm down, sir. I'm like, and you're not allowed to tell them like what's really going on. And that pissed me off because now I feel like my life's at jeopardy,
Because
right?
you're on an NDA with the show, right?
Yep. You're on an NDA. And
Oh, shut up! You couldn't tell
it
him.
was fucking horseshit.
Oh my god!
It was only horseshit because my main doctor was worthless, and I hope she's watching this. Absolutely worthless. And so it got to that night, and she saw me for the first time. And I go, "You're supposed to be our doctor." She's like, "I have other clients." I go, "You're the only one I can talk to." So
Right.
I was like, she's like, "Do you not think we could do our jobs?" I go, "Fuck no." I said, "Done." I was like, "I'm done with this." And she's like, "Oh, I'll sign your papers. You can leave tomorrow." I'm like, "Please." So production's like, "Where do you want to go?" I was like, "Send me to the VA in Portland, Oregon." So the VA is awesome. Portland sucks. We got it. So
VA's awesome. Portland sucks.
So the production was like, "Hey, I know life kind of sucks right now, but can you at least film the outro?" I was like, "Yeah." Well, that night my legs had swelled up from my knees down, and they told me, they're like, "Hey, it's probably from the doxycycline." And I was like, "Man, I've taken doxycycline a lot in the Marine Corps for malaria, for whenever you're traveling and stuff." And I was like, "Never done that. Whatever." So the following day after that, I'm walking to the airport, the chubby ass little legs, barely get my boots on, and I'm like, "This is annoying," and I'm tired. And I get to the VA the following morning and give them my paperwork, and they're like, "Ooh, come back here." So they took me back, and within 30 minutes, the difference between Canada, you had 3 days. The United States, within 30 minutes, they had a team of cardiologists and infectious disease on me. And they were like, "Right now your heart is in the condition of an 87-year-old man just had a massive heart attack." They're like, "You didn't have a heart attack, but your heart is
that
not
good?
working." Yeah, is that good?
I don't know. Is that good?
So you're saying there's a chance.
So I was like, they're like, "That's why your knees are swelled up. That's why it's hard to breathe, blah, blah." And I was like, how the fuck did Canada not catch that? Your heart's kind of in there with your chest cavity,
right?
with your
Yeah,
lungs.
no
How the
shit.
hell did you not catch that? And your troponin levels are through the roof. We don't know if it's on the rise or the fall. So obviously admitted immediately. And I didn't realize this. I still was like MRI, echocardiogram, ultrasounds of my heart and everything. Brain, I mean, they spared no expense, right?
Right.
And day 3, I remember trying to leave. I talked to my doctor. I was like, "Hey, man, what do you think about," and I was standing up. "Hey, man, what do you think about me like going to the house and relaxing on the couch like Canada let me do it?"
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Sit the fuck down." He's like, "We usually don't try to scare our patients, but maybe I should tell you and put it into reality for you. But like, he's like, if you would have stayed out there 1 to 2 more days longer, there's a very good chance your heart could have just completely stopped. If you didn't start getting the albendazole, the medication that killed that parasite, when you got it, there's a very good chance you could have died." And we still didn't know I had trichinosis at this time, but we were treating myself for both things. So yeah, I mean, trichinosis, man, that's a gnarly.
How did you get it?
From the fish.
From
And
the fish?
I didn't even think you could get it from fish.
I didn't think you could get it
So
from fish
I'm sitting there and I'm trying to trichinosis. What the hell did I get that from a damn mouse? Because I did eat a mouse. It has to be from meat eating animal.
Right.
And I knew that I had it on day 10. And I'm talking to this guy named Survival Doctors, his Instagram name, right? Awesome guy. And I don't know his first name. I think it's like Tan or something. He's Asian and he's super smart and he's a legit doctor. I thought it was just an Instagram thing. And he's like, "No, man." He's like, you definitely got it from the fish." And he sends me all these articles. And I was like, "Oh, well, that sucks." And it sucks because nobody cooks their fish 160 degrees.
Nobody.
When you're living life like a king, right?
Right.
Well, we all know who the king is of that show. But when you're living like you're loving everything you're doing out there and you have enough food, I'm eating at 140, medium rare, medium salmon. It was trout, but salmon. And so I wouldn't have done anything different, but I ended up catching it from the fish.
That's fucking wild. I didn't know you could get it from fish. I mean, like how do we get away with sushi? You have any idea?
Well, I don't know, but what I'm thinking is it was a lake trout too.
Right.
So freshwater trout versus something and
okay.
So maybe that's it, but considering where it's at, there's not very many people going up there, but fish do carry a lot of parasites. I think there's like 3 main parasites that fish carry. I still wasn't cooking my fish any differently.
That's why I don't typically take sushi out of vending machines because you should never eat sushi from a vending machine. Just so you guys know, it's a little life advice from Evan. You can take that, put it away. Never eat sushi from a vending machine.
You're welcome.
So when that was last year, right? Was that in 2020?
I came out of the field on Halloween of 2019.
How long did it take you?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah. So my mom, I was a 33-year-old man at that time, alone and unafraid, and I couldn't even walk the damn grocery store. Like, and I hadn't seen my son in a long time. Yeah. And I had to tell his mom, like, hey, I can't do it right now. I can't even see him. She's like, what? And I was like, you don't love your son? I'm like, Jesus. I'm like, I'm in a bad spot right now. I didn't really tell her exactly what was going on, except I was in the hospital. So, but I remember trying to walk through the grocery store with my mom. She flew out to take care of me. And she's like, I made it like in the door. I had to sit down and I was like, fuck, this whole heart thing is a bummer.
Turns out it's kind of important.
Yeah. So, it took me about 2 months before I was like feeling good because once the heart was under control, my liver started going crazy because all the medication they were giving me.
Right. Yep.
So it's just this constant battle of going back and forth. And it was a pain in the ass. But, talk about a learning curve. Talk about going through an experience and living from it and being 100% now. Like I have technically worms in my body. Any of you motherfuckers try and eat me, and during the apocalypse, you're going to get trichinosis. Cook me 160. Yeah, cook me 160 degrees.
Yeah.
But
note to self.
Yeah.
Write that down, Jackie. Cook him at 160
How long
and
does
above.
it take to get the parasites out of your... How long is it going to take?
It's only like 2 week cycle of this medication, right? So, and all it does is kills all the parasites in your stomach.
Right.
So
but
all the ones
still
that
in your muscle.
Yep. Everything that went into your bloodstream, into your muscles, they're staying there. Right. There's no way of getting rid of that for like almost up to 10 years. I don't know how true that is, but I was watching Steven Ranella talk about his experience with trichinosis and some other people, and he goes from not that bad, it'll pass through some people's bodies, to it'll kill you in 4 to 6 weeks from either heart failure or pneumonia. And I ended up having started pneumonia on with my lung, the fluid, and put me into heart failure. So.
Which is weird because you didn't get any of that from the show. Like, he was just like, oh man, I was...
And in the end, I was able to kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
But during the actual show itself, I wasn't complaining about being tired. I would say like, we're tired right now.
Yeah.
But that's all, that's all you knew.
Well, it was weird because I remember thinking, it was strange because I remember watching, and then, we're talking to you about it right now, but I was watching, I was like, man, so something happened. Like, it's just like, because one day it seemed like you were fucking kicking ass, and then obviously the show is like, and then the next time you're like pressing the button. And I was thinking, it's like, there's a lot of dudes we know that it'd be really hard to press that button psychologically. Like you'd have to be in a fucking rough spot. Like physically and mentally, you'd have to be in a rough spot to be like, when there's some guys we know and be like, fuck this, I'm hungry. You know what I mean?
The cheeseburger button.
Yeah, it's like, I want a pizza. I'm out of here. I went through a Amati. Fuck this, I'm done. That
was the biggest reason for doing this show, was for the military guys out there, to give them, to justify, make it, show what guys with our attitudes can do. And so my whole thing was, I don't give a fuck if I win. Don't quit.
Yeah.
Do not quit. That's it. It's the name of the game. And so I'm out there and I'm doing it for the recon and the sniper community, specifically the recon and sniper community, because fucking that's my community, right? Mm-hmm. But for all military people out there, because some guys in the military in the past have made an ass out of themselves. Not everybody. Like some guys quit and they do a great job still. Yeah. But some guys have made an ass. And when it comes to survival shows, it's been the thing.
We haven't looked great.
No, we haven't looked that great, man. But there's a lot of good people out there who just haven't been given the opportunity, afforded the opportunity to do it, just because production's looking for certain things, right?
Well, I think a lot of them are they're looking for a certain personality type too, because it plays better for drama. Like how many silent, quiet professionals do we know? It's like
not going to be entertaining to watch.
They're not going to be entertaining.
No,
like they're not going to be entertaining. They're not going to cause any drama. Yeah. They're just going to be like, yeah, this is what I got to do every day. It's cool.
Those humble ones are usually ones that would last a lot longer, right?
Yeah.
And so I was doing it to not quit. And when I got to that point where I knew that I'd done some hard shit in my life and my career, and I was like, no, I'm done. And the craziest thing about it is I just kind of like knew it and I called it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm tired. I'm done. I can't keep going to this rate.
But you have that perspective
But when you realize like, oh, 1 to 2 more days longer being a stubborn asshole
Mhm.
and you wouldn't be seeing your son anymore, like I'm just going to be the dumbass that died of trichinosis. And they still probably give me shit for dying on the show, right? Like there's
Yeah, all your buddies would be like, you remember that dumb motherfucker? He died of
Bitch, you
trichinosis.
died of heart failure.
Too stupid to quit.
Yeah.
There's a hard line between hard and retarded, and sometimes we cross it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like that, the 44 days, right?
Yep.
Like even 44 days for most guys, that would be brutal. Like, I mean, for a ton of the people that I know, 44 days, like throw down that survival challenge and most guys would be like, I know a ton of guys, obviously, you know, there'd be a huge percentage, I think it would be like 5 to 10. They'd be in that 5 to 10. And then after 10, I think psychologically, like, I got to check the fuck out. Like, seriously, I mean, and that's just based on my experience of dealing with guys and being an instructor for, you know, X amount of time. One, not very many people would even want to do it. They'd be like, fuck this. I'm not going to do that. Are you crazy? Like, I'm not, that's hard as, that's like beyond hard. There's no way.
And that's the thing, man. Like our military backgrounds, I'm always saying like, I don't give a shit about what I used to do in the past. I'm living in the moment. What am I doing now?
Yeah.
And so I saw that as an opportunity to like, awesome, go and test yourself, push yourself. And now that I know that I'm doing a podcast right now on that and we're talking about it, but like, shit, that was me in the past. Now it's like, well, what am I doing now? And I'm always looking for the next thing. I will never live life in the past and talking about it. I don't ever want to be that guy. So
even having that experience to look back and know you can drop yourself into a scenario and be great. A week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Yeah, like, fuck, man, I can do that standing on my head in a bucket of shit. Like, you have that psychological experience or the physical and psychological experience now to be like, this should be pretty easy given the circumstances you were in.
Well, I guess I know that in that area, I feel confident I can make it 44 days, right? And this is what I'll say. I feel confident I can make it 44 days and be happy.
Right.
Because I was pretty damn, I was living life like, and I was happy and I was doing good and by yourself, but I can't speak for any, not a day longer than that.
Yeah.
But I do think about it. I'm like, man, if I didn't have heart failure, like how long would I have kept going? I knew I had enough food for 60 days. I'm talking breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I was being a fat ass. I mean, I was eating everything. There was no like the whole save your food, ration it out. Fuck that. I was like, eat. And I was literally, I gained weight. You know, I was looking at the scale. They did like three checks for body weight. And I remember going from initially when I started at 205 down to 178. And I was like, oh shit, first 5 days, water weight, blah, blah. And then they came and checked me. I was like 187. I was like, fuck yeah, getting it back.
Oh yeah.
And then they checked me the last time. And I remember it said back down to 178. And I was like, okay. But I mean, I was shitting my brains out twice a day, you know? And so there's no way of keeping weight when you're doing that.
So now come back and with your business, did you transition and are you making different business decisions because of your show experience?
I am, man.
Are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one, I do love instructing. I do love teaching. Still do it. Me and Keith do that together. We go and teach. We literally just got done teaching a precision hunting course at Branded Rock Canyon.
What's the name of the company?
International Mountain Survival.
Okay.
Yeah. So teaching mostly, we call it like the woodsman high angle course. So we're mixing long range shooting in with the woodsman mentality. Because that's where my passion was.
What's
The whole
that mean,
like
though?
the whole sniper thing, right?
Okay.
And we're not teaching people to be snipers at all, but to be comfortable out in the wilderness.
Yeah.
I got a client. His name's Brian, and that dude, he's a surfboard maker from Southern California. Doesn't know shit. Didn't even know how to change a fucking tire, right?
Right.
And he's like, Mark, I want to learn from you. I want to learn everything. And that dude has put in the time and effort to go through course after course after course. And his next course coming up, we're going in the Sierra Nevadas. We're getting dropped and we're moving from location to location for 5 days. And we engage one target every day and the rest is moving and surviving, right? And so that's what I love to do. Be in the mountains and push yourself in that direction, but with a rifle, not with a traditional bow. So, yeah.
Trad bow would be pretty rough. So when you guys are out there with your courses and you're talking about like long range shooting, what kind of what type of calibers are you guys suggesting guys use? Optics, rifles, and things like that. Walk me through kind of your packing list of your ideal setup.
Yeah, so the long range shooting community is kind of interesting, right? They spend a lot of
It's super interesting.
Yeah,
they talk about snipers. Their online snipers are pretty good too.
People get into the weeds. Now that long range competitions have come along, people really get into the weeds about what they're doing. And honestly, long range shooting is not that fucking complicated. And people go, oh, I need this caliber and that caliber and that caliber. And I tell people, pick a fucking caliber and just shoot it and learn it.
Just know your gun.
Know your damn gun. And why don't you learn how to hunt? Because, I teach shooting, and me and Keith teach shooting for military applications, law enforcement applications, or hunting. Other than that, I don't see the purpose of having a rifle or a pistol. I'm like, it's got its application and its use. And it is fun, but don't create training scars, right?
Right.
So when it comes to gear, we're using Mesa precision rifles now. We've used other rifles in the past, optics, Leupold optics. They make damn good optics. They've been around for a long damn time.
They're made in the United States.
Yeah, made in the United States, America. So,
and they got a great team up there, right? They've been really good to us.
Cryptech, clothing, all that gear. But there's a lot of good gear out there.
There is.
And so, I'm not sitting there saying that it fits every job, but
I love those guys. Like the Butch and the crew that they have up at Cryptech, those guys are fucking awesome.
Oh,
they sent us a bunch of shit before our bear hunt, before we went out there. And honestly, their gear is awesome. Like the only reason I didn't wear it is because I've sent them probably the wrong sizes. So I was either swimming in it or I was swimming in it. So I was like 32, 34s. They sent me 32, 34s. I'm like, bro, there's not been a day in my life when I've ever been a 34 length. So it looked like I had to roll the bottoms of them or they would
You just made me feel better about myself, but I can't wear your pants.
Yeah.
So I gave those to Matt, Matt Best. Wow, those are my favorite pants. It just turns out that they sent my size to you. So it was perfect.
Well, it's a good segue to plug those guys one more time, right? You wore all the Cryptech stuff because you knew it, you had it, it worked, right? But also Butch is just a great guy, right? He's also
great
Butch and Josh with their backgrounds. Yeah. Show me another camouflage company, clothing company that supports the military like they do.
Oh, there's not one.
There's not. Yeah. Good damn people. And when it comes to, I have to choose between this line of clothing or that line of clothing. It's pretty fucking similar. I'm going to go with the people that support this fucking country and what I believe in, the same beliefs. So.
Yeah, the only reason not the only reason. Sitka is obviously owned by Gore, and then their lead product designer is John Barklow. He's been on the show a ton of times. He's a former Navy guy. He's a survival instructor out of Kodiak. So I know who designs the product over there. Yeah. So I'm and so some of their shit, I'm just like, God damn, this is good. Their fucking pants, their lightweight pants are
it's good stuff.
Dude, it's good. I can't, and it's come so far. You remember those, you were in 08, but you were earlier. Were you still using the green camis when you were in?
Oh, you talking about the old tricolors?
Yeah. Dude, for the longest time, I was like, man, all I need is BDU bottoms and fucking jungle boots, and I can, have uniform will travel. I didn't realize that there was really good fucking gear out there from companies that would make shit that actually would dry out really easily and shed a little bit of water and all these things. I'm like, no, man, this is cotton. This is great. Cotton's good stuff.
So that's
so good.
Well, that's a good segue. To loop back around some military stuff, right? I can't add much to the survival stuff, right? Sitting next to this guy, I'll just kind of shut up. But you talk about the uniform, gear, clothing, and equipment in the military, right? It's crazy. Unless you're with a soft unit and you can kind of purchase some, Cry or whatever, it's out of control. We've got a combat utility, I'm talking about the Marine Corps, right?
Yeah,
That's the only branch I can really speak to with any authority. But we've got a combat utility uniform that hasn't had utility in combat in 16 years, right? Because we're still running around in cotton, it's crazy.
Exactly.
And they've got all this stuff out there. We've made a lot of advance. There's a lot of reasons for that, right? Anybody listening, it's, budget stuff, but it's.
Well, yeah, it's when Congress is approving budget for hundreds of thousands of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
their considerations are much different from an individual selecting.
For me down there on the ground, like, goddamn, I'm sweaty.
I'm so sweaty, this thing will not dry. It's like, and in some circumstances it works great. And, maybe there are some circumstances where cotton actually works better, right? Like, I can't necessarily name them off the top of my head.
In any environment.
In any environment. But I can say, maybe I'm at least open to say, yeah, sure, you can take your knife and I can make a little jeans.
Hey, I'll tell you what, for making a flint and steel fire, you got to make some char cloth. Fuck, you got cotton, use it for that. Burn it.
Sure.
Burn that cotton and use it for that at least.
When we also had like the digital camouflage wars of the 2000s, right? Between all the branches and,
But there is something there's a company overseas and somewhere in Europe that takes cotton and they say that they can make it happen, make it work some way to where it keeps you extremely warm. It's really great. I don't know. Just saying, throwing it out there. Maybe they figured it out. Maybe they didn't. But
I don't know either, man. Like I've I don't know. I haven't gone down the rabbit hole on, I find gear and I'm like, great, I'll try it out. I'll see what it works. And if it works, it works.
Great.
I've been on these crispy boots now for probably a year and they don't pay any sponsorship to me or anybody. But dude, it's the only boot I've had in like literally since, and you guys, I don't know if you remember this, but you might, but we could do it in SF. We could like modify our jungle boots.
Sure.
So we could take them to a boot shop, shave the bottoms off.
Resole them with something else.
Resole them. They rip all the guts out of them. So they basically be like running shoes, basically like jungle boots that were running shoes. I'm like, that was the last boot that like when you put it on your foot, you're like, this is great. I can do shit in this thing, right? Like an old beat up jungle boot is like, there's something nostalgic about it and it feels so good on your foot. I hadn't had a boot fit like that. Actually, the last boot that I had fit like that was a Vask Sundowner first gen from like the 90s that I bought. My first real pair of boots I bought at Army Navy store that I've had resold 3 fucking times.
Well, you say that, right? It's like because intermittently, actually, I just went into a surplus store a couple months ago because I was missing some gear to turn in. So I was in there. Of course. I was in there like a Lance Corporal, like, you got any polypros?
You got a compass? You got about an angle lens flashlight?
Yeah, because there's no way the gunner is going to be like, can I get a missing gear statement? So, but I saw some old jungle boots on the wall and like I wanted to buy them, right? I have no use for them, no practical use for them, but it was a nostalgia. I'm like, oh man, those are cool boots. That's like the institutionalized part of my brain as I'm sitting here like bitching about the uniforms we have. I do kind of miss the old tricolor sometimes because, dude, I mean, especially in the Marine Corps, right? We were super ridiculous about, like pressing those things out and spit polishing the boots. But it was nice. You roll in on a Monday morning, everybody looks sharp. You got to like separate.
Everybody looks sharp.
You got to separate the camis with, so much starch, right? You looked good.
You're breaking starch.
Yeah.
Like, you had that fucking tight seam down the front.
Yeah.
Like, it looked good. There was something nostalgic.
Yeah. You'd roll out on a Monday morning and be like, God damn, I look good.
Yeah.
Now,
it's kind of like a rucksack too, right? It's like you see a rucksack and something like pulls back in your brain. You're like, oh man, that thing's so comfy or whatever. And then you're like, what the fuck? Like I threw one on. It was like, man, these straps fucking suck. Like this kidney pad is like grinding into my back. Like there's no kidney pad.
We just went and did a hunt last year, archery hunt, me and him and another guy. And I brought out the new pack I have and everybody brings out their new packs. And he brings out a pack that he's had for how long?
I've been riding it like 20 years in the Marine Corps.
20 years.
And the thing
that pissed me off the most is this motherfucker made me carry so much of his gear because he couldn't carry because it wasn't big enough. It's not big enough to
This
carry.
is not true. So
It's not true.
Mark goes up like a week ahead of time and caches an entire rucksack.
Oh, yeah.
Full. Right? I think he actually cached a rifle up there and like buried it in cellophane or whatever, right? And so we get up there and we're packing up to leave. And I have a full ruck, hiked up with a full ruck because I needed shit. And so we get up there and then we're packing up to leave. And he's like, hey, who can carry all this stuff? And I'm like, you?
No. He says a full ruck. This dude didn't have a tent to sleep in. He's sleeping out there under a tarp like a miserable son of a bitch. And all of us were all comfortable and everything with our big sleeping bags, We're like, we suffered enough.
That, right? So they'd come out of there and it was so cold. Right? I've got like a 3-season bag and like a poncho liner in there. And then I'm just shivering. I get like 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and then I just lay there and like I'm running in place in my bag trying to warm up. And then these guys would come out in the morning, and it'd be like steam escaping from the tent when they open it. And they're like, how'd you sleep? And I'm like, great.
Great.
Fucking fine. I carry that weight, right? But internally, I'm like, damn it.
I've been rolling like the same like sleep system for I don't know how long. Once you find it, you're just like, okay. I was like taking my wife, which is a horrible experience, by the way. So I haven't been in an REI for years. Like I'll go to Cabela's, Bass Pro, like, one, they're Black Rifle coffee dealers. So, and I love those guys. Two, I didn't realize that even a lot of the people in REI just make me angry. They look like they just walked out of like a tofu factory.
They're
or
like
something.
the anti-you.
Yeah.
Right?
And like I was there and it's like it's not even a beta male. It's like a delta male. It's a different version.
It's a straight Zulu male.
Yeah, it's like Zulu. Just take the last alphabet. I mean, they're like, there's no mask mandate in Salt Lake, and all these dudes are cruising around in like, Birkenstocks, wearing their fucking tie-dyed masks or whatever. And you're like, I need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
As soon as I can get the fuck out of here, I might catch whatever parasite these motherfuckers have that's eating their brain and making them like dumb as fuck. So we're there, we're at REI because she's like, we need a new sleeping bag. And I'm like going through like the pros and cons of, okay, well, this is, down and this is synthetic and this is the pro and con of this. And here's your sleeping pad. And which it's not a miserable experience choosing stuff like that with my wife. The experience was REI just in general of the climate, we'll call it the social climate of the environment it's so contradictory now because I've been in like hunting and the outdoor space for hunting for so long. I remember like when I was more into like the mountaineering side and going into REI in Seattle, their big flagship store, it never bothered me. Like it actually never bothered me. This time, it fucking bothered me. Like I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. I don't want to catch what you guys have.
Yeah, they belong in Portland and in Seattle and California. They can have all that.
But there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on, right? I mean, I think you see, and I think maybe that's one of the, I don't know, I'm talking about stuff I don't know about, but I think that's
all we do on the show is talk about shit we don't know about.
But I think you're seeing this because we've almost become like the counterculture, right?
Yeah.
Guys that kind of think like we do. And so I think we'll see the pendulum start to swing the other way as a result. And I think we are seeing it, right? I think that's why companies like Black Rifle Coffee Company are doing so well. And,
we've been silent for a long time, so.
Well, and we have, right? We've just been biting our tongue on a lot of shit. And I think people are just kind of fed up with it. And we don't get paid by Cryptech either, right? But
if you want to, go ahead.
Yeah, but if you're listening, sponsorship deals are open.
This is the third time we've mentioned you guys. That's why they started kind of making this whole line of like just clothing and stuff, right? Not just camouflage, because so many of these outdoor companies, they don't get down with the hunting and, some of our views.
They're anti-hunting.
They're anti pretty much,
everything.
Most of the things that we stand for.
Anti-gun, anti-hunting, It's so funny. I was up in northern Idaho fishing. I love to fly fish, right? Like I'll do any type of fishing. It doesn't fucking matter.
Some of the best fly fishing in the lower 48, right there in Bridgeport.
Yeah. But the fly fishing community at times, like, and it's funny because where I'm at is like it's all loggers, right? So I'm out there fly fishing and I like pack up my rod. I'm getting ready to head out. And guy comes up to the truck. He's like, "Fly fishing, huh?" That's what he said. And he looked at me like, I never in a million years have felt more like a dirty hippie than like he's like, "Fly fishing, huh? Okay. I got you now." And I'm like,
I know what you're about.
I'm like, I'm getting an F-350, man. Like I'm not your enemy. I'm out here. I just like to fly fish. It's fucking fun, But it's so fucking weird to me that there's like different sections of like outdoor recreation to stick to different things. And then, sometimes it earmarks you as conservative or liberal or whatever it might be. I'm like, I'm just pro freedom, right? I'm like,
Bingo.
You do you, pro freedom, man. Like you want to, cruise down the hill with your tele skis or go fly fishing, like rad. That doesn't exclude you from like killing an elk. And I know a ton of guys that are like pseudo hippie-ish that are like way into fucking guns, that are way into their trad bows. And I mean, you've seen them, those outdoor, the hardcore outdoor traditional dudes that are still wearing like buckskins.
Yeah.
And I just came across 2 people out in the middle of Clearwater National Forest. It's 2 old dudes, like easily in their 60s, running Appaloosas and mules in full buckskin regalia, and they looked like they'd been out there for fucking weeks. They were dirty. They had been out there for a while.
Living the dream.
And my wife, we're both looking at them. We're like, man, they're living the dream out here. Just fucking running Appaloosas out in the middle of nowhere. But there's no way that you're going to get me to do that in buckskins.
No.
Like, I'm not going to do that. Like leather, like man, I'll tell you, like leather. Like, can you imagine like humping your ass off with a trad bow in the middle of fucking nowhere with leather?
Just no breathing.
I might do a loincloth.
Yeah, or like the chaps. Didn't they used to always just wear the chaps, right? And they're like open butts riding horses. And I'm thinking about that too, going, gee, those were hard people. Because no saddle, riding a horse, basically naked.
Is that real? I think that's
real,
that's
man.
Young Guns that you're thinking of, right?
Maybe it could be just maybe that's some other shit that I've been watching that I should I don't know if I should be disclosing.
Yeah.
So how many courses are you guys teaching every year? How many are you guys running?
Well, it depends, right? So we do several out at this ranch we're working at, and then we do separate things that we kind of schedule, ad hoc, right? As people reach out. But we're probably instructing what?
Yeah, so it's
15?
a couple different things. For the people like me and Keith, don't have the biggest wallets in the world. Like, we do courses for people like that. And then for people that want to go for an experience, we got a place called Branded Rock Canyon where we teach courses at, like 5-star lodging and meals, and really preparing those guys for those $80,000 sheep hunts.
Right.
And that's an impressive facility.
Oh, man, it's a great place. So teaching courses out there, we'll do about 6 of those a year. We'll do some cow elk hunt courses, do 2 days of shooting, 2 days of cow elk. And then we do courses with International Mountain Survival. And we'll do woodsman high angle courses. And those are pretty much like 2 in the wintertime and then 4 in the summertime.
Gotcha.
Because it just stays busy. Because outside of that, it's freaking, we got my Instagram, and Instagram's shoot, hunt, survive. And that's exactly what we do. We shoot, we hunt, when we survive. And we teach all those things. And we got into recently, started a wine brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, I don't know shit about wine. But it's called the Woodsman Selection. So everything that we're doing, because
is it Washington wine?
It is.
Yeah,
man. And actually,
oh, sweet.
Yeah. So
you're going to be a little disappointed.
Yeah, you might be a little disappointed.
It's a Leupold box, but it's nice.
A little bit of a pump fake.
So we started what's called the Woodsman Selection, right? And it's all about the outdoors, and it's all about getting people outdoors, and that's sinew up top, arrowhead on the bottle, and teaches people that QR code teaches people everything about archery hunting. So
Seriously?
you go, oh yeah, you scan.
Where's it go?
To a website, and then you scan that QR code, and it tells you everything about archery hunting. We've got one called the Angler. We've got one called the Hunter. We've got one called the Bushcrafter and the Woodsman. So there's different variants of this, right? But we brought you this. A buddy Evan of mine, actually, we started this, and we brought you this because this is a cab, and we don't make the wine because I'm fucking not smart enough to make the wine first off, and I don't want to do that. But this pairs really good with wild game, and the bears you were sending me those pictures of, man, this pairs really great with that.
Does it really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's kind of our thing, is pairing this with the wild game.
Yeah, this is cool. This is a great gift. But the good thing is I like to drink wine, so that's
there you go,
better.
Man. Thanks for having us on the show, man.
Thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Where can everybody find you guys? Like, where can they sign up for a course? Where they can follow you on Instagram? They can just DM you, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, Instagram's honestly the easiest way. So shoot, hunt, survive. Easiest way to kind of remember that. Or intsurvival.com and contact the website through there.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we look forward to having you guys back. Like, I'd love to have you guys back and check in.
Man, we got to go hunting sometime.
Yeah.
And a loincloth and leathers.
On Appaloosas.
Yeah. We were talking about going down and doing some deer hunting in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, pretty soon. So we'll drag you down there with us.
I'd love to go down there. Well, cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That concludes today's training. Any questions?